What's going on today, everybody? So my wife's been having a little bit of trouble with her car. It's actually starting to kind of hesitate a little bit and the RPMs jump. I don't know if this is engine related. It kind of feels more transmission related, but with how many miles are on the car, we actually are due for a set of plugs in her car. So we're gonna go ahead and see if that's a good starting point. Now, it's a pretty cheap and easy way, and her car's got 130,000 miles on it, and I think it's got the original plugs in it. So this is always a good maintenance thing to do to any car. About 30 to 60 is where you want to change them. So we're gonna go ahead and change her spark plugs for her, and hopefully that fixes it, and if not, it'll help keep the car running a lot better. So without further ado, we'll grab our spark plugs, and I think it's a couple 10mm bolts, and we'll get to it. So first things first, we've got to go ahead and remove this cover off of hers. Hers actually is the 3.6 VVTi, so it's the 6-cylinder CVT automatic transmission. So first things we're gonna do, we're gonna remove this, but in order to do that, we actually have to take this oil cap off. That we can just set to the side. And then this just pulls up. I like to pull from here because you can kind of get a good leverage point. But it just pops right off, and there's 4 of them. And now that those are off, this whole thing will come off. And all it is it's just, so it's 3. There's 3 pressure clips that just sit on these little nubs right here. Now, since that's going to be off for a while, I definitely want to put the oil cap back in because there's actually a lot of sand underneath here, stuck in all these little pockets. So I'm actually going to go ahead and try to remove some of that sand so it doesn't get further into the engine, because I can get to these first 3 probably without taking anything off. But it looks like I'm going to have to take this intake off to get to these back ones that are back deep into here. So the front ones will be pretty easy, back ones will be pretty involved. Anyway, we'll go ahead and we'll start removing some stuff and get to those back ones. Do the hard ones first, and then we'll get to the easy ones. So it's actually turning out to be not terribly difficult to get the 3 bolts out of the backside. So these 3 bolts are holding the coils into the engine. Now, there's also an electrical clip that's in the back. So first take the clip and you can push down, pull it out, and then you can get to these bolts. Now, I was having troubles where it's a little tight for the wrench, and if I would get it on and it would just it would click, but it wouldn't click to rotate back and forth. So a trick is you can take the actual socket off, because it's really hard to grab this head with just your fingers. But if you put the socket on, you actually have this whole area now that you can grab and twist with. And if you have enough room, you could put even a extension on the end of that, and then you can grab with your hand and twist with your hands like that. Little trick. So far this is actually, I haven't taken that intake off, so that's gonna be helpful if I can avoid doing that. So now I've got these 3 bolts out and everything's unclipped. We should be able to actually go in and just pull those out. They're just stuck on the top of the actual spark plug is actually holding those on. Maybe a little bit of a suction, but we'll go ahead and try to pull those out and see if we can get those spark plugs out. So there we go, we went and got the first one out, and it's got a little dust boot on it that kind of holds it in, but the main thing that holds it in is this end sits on the actual spark plug itself to hold it in. So one of them out. Now it's not very important, but I would say it's pretty crucial. I don't like to do it, I don't like to mix these up, so I will take one out, take the spark plug out, put the new one in, and then put this cap back in, and then I know that that's done and I don't have to go back to it. I don't like mixing them up. It shouldn't really matter because they're all the same. They're all doing the same job, but I still don't want to have that chance of it being a problem, if that makes sense. So just stick with what it was. So since I haven't done these spark plugs before, I don't know what size that they actually are. So another helpful tip, if you don't know the size, take one of your new ones and go to your bench and figure out what socket that is. Now, spark plugs come in two main sizes. There's a bigger size and a smaller size. Now, the corresponding size for them is 5/8 for the smaller, and then 13/16 for the larger. But what makes a spark plug socket set special from an actual different 5/8 or 13/16 is it actually has a little rubber piece down inside of there. Kind of see on this one. Anyways, there's a little rubber piece down inside of there, so when you actually go to put your spark plug in, so we put our spark plug in, it'll actually hold it in there with that rubber piece. Now that comes in handy when you're trying to pull it out, because you push this on, you get your spark plug out. Well, a normal socket, you go to pull it out and the spark plug will stay in there because there's nothing connecting the two. So if we grab a regular 5/8, so we've got a regular 5/8 and we go have our spark plug, it just can go in and out however it wants. There's nothing holding it in there. So say you go to actually pull it out of the engine, got done unscrewing it, you pull it out of the engine, well, now it's stuck in there. Whereas if you have a spark plug one, you go unscrew it, you can actually hold it out. Stays in there. Definitely worth buying. There's only two main sizes that you really need. Definitely worth buying them though. So now that we've got one of our old plugs out, it's definitely time to put a new one in. But first, it's definitely worth it to have some actual anti-seize for your spark plugs. Now this will help for any future. If you plan on doing it again, even if you don't plan on doing it again, definitely put some anti-seize in there, because this will help in the long run. Not only with making sure that it stays in, but making sure that it will come back out when it gets done. So definitely put some anti-seize on there and then put the spark plugs in. Not too much though. So it's definitely worth having a couple of different extensions. This rear seems to, you can't get both extensions in put together, but you definitely need two extensions, a small one and then a medium one, like a 2-inch and then a 6-inch, to get in to where you need to go and then get over the hoses. So definitely worth having a couple extensions out. This seems to be working the best for me. Go ahead and put the actual socket with an extension into the engine or into the hole for the spark plug, and then put the other smaller one and then the ratchet on top. So when you're going ahead and putting these spark plugs in, you definitely don't want to over torque them. It doesn't take much, just get them in there snug. It doesn't have to be super tight, and it should just grab a little bit. Like, you'll be spinning, it'll be free, easy, and then all of a sudden it'll get hard and you just turn it like quarter turn. Doesn't take much more than that. So definitely don't over torque them, because if you break the porcelain, it's gonna be a bad time, because that's gonna be harder than heck to get out. So definitely don't over torque them. So we've gone ahead and already taken out the old spark plug, put the new one in. Now it's time to put the igniter back in. Now I'm not gonna tighten all the screws down, but I am gonna put the screws in to know which one I've done, especially on this backside, because I can't see them. I'm pulling out the ones that don't have screws on it. So I'll go ahead and I'll put this back in and put the screw start the screw. I probably won't get it all the way in, but I'll start the screw at least, so when I'm feeling around, I know, hey, this one has a screw in it. I'm done with this one. I don't need to do it again. And that's the benefit of doing them one at a time, because now I've got all the screws out. I can go ahead and put one in, put the screw in, feel around, and oh, okay, I need to do this one. I need to do that one. Done with this one. Just a little forward thinking. But now that that's in, we'll go ahead, clean this dust boot up just a little bit so it'll seal again, keep the dust out. But we'll go ahead and put this back in the car. So now that we've got that one done, the process is the same for all the other 5 that we have to do, total of 6. So we'll go ahead and finish out the rest of them, and check back in with you. So since I've got all brand new spark plugs, it's definitely worth taking the time and taking each one out of the box and checking the gap with an actual spark plug gapper. Now look it up online. Sometimes it says in the owner's manual, but most likely you can find it online real quick. Just spark plug and then spark plug gap and then whatever year and then kind of car it is. Real easy to figure it out. Real cheap and easy insurance, because you want to keep that spark plug, the gap, as close as you can. Now since these are iridiums, they've got a super fine tip on it, and you actually can't go ahead and adjust these like you can regular ones. You kind of can, but don't go pushing on the actual iridium tip in there, because that will break and cause problems. So definitely go ahead and bend the bracket if you absolutely need to, but if it's like within 1/1000th, it should be pretty close, as long as you're not racing your engine. But definitely check the gap, make sure it's not way out of whack, or it will really cause problems. They want to be real close. So with my spark plug gapper and my spark plug in hand, go ahead and put it in at the lowest setting and then slowly work it around to where it stops. Now that should be your reading that you're looking for. So this one looks like it's about between 0.043 and 0.044. Now that's perfect, because we want 0.043 on our plug gap. And if you look at this, it slowly gets bigger as it goes around, and that's how it measures the thickness between those two. So if you have to, this comes with a little tip bender. You just bend the tip, or you can push it down, and that will get you a lot closer. But definitely be careful, especially with iridiums, that you don't break that little tip that's down inside of there, because that thing's what keeps the whole engine running. Now we're all done with the back side, we're going to move on to this front side. It'll be a lot easier to show you. So this clip has a little button on it right here. Push it down, pull it back, that slides right off, and then there's a little 10mm bolt down in there that has to come out. Now that that bolt's out, this whole igniter will come out. Now you can get down and see the actual spark plug down in there. So we'll go ahead, take our tool, make sure it's on there. Go ahead, break it free. Then I like to just do the rest by hand. Another good thing about these spark plug sockets is if you lift up on it, you kind of can't pull it out. That means you still have threads to go. So we'll just keep going until we can actually lift it out. So there we go. So now once I get new spark plug, put it in, and I like to tighten it all the way down by hand till it reaches the end and you can't quite spin it anymore. And then just stick the top on, the socket on, make sure you're tightening, and then just give it a quick little tighten. That's all that you should really need for it. Now we can pull that out. Go ahead and reinstall our igniter. Clip it in. Make sure that it's clipped all the way. And go ahead and reinstall the bolt. Now I'll go ahead and do the other two, and then I'll go back through and double check that each clip is tightened on for all 6, and then go through and tighten down each one of the little bolts that hold the igniter in. So the ones that I thought for sure would be the easier ones to do are proving to be a little more difficult. This one right here actually needs to be, you can't pull it out because there's stuff in the way. So we're gonna have to go ahead and take this off. And if you look, there's a little 10mm bolt that's sitting back there that we can go ahead and take that off. It should get this whole thing out of the way. We should be able to get to it. So now we've got this bolt undone. We can pull this bolt out. Set that aside. And pull this out. So it's held in there with an O-ring. We could set that just down to the side. And now hopefully we can, this sits in here like this, we can spin it. And hopefully it'll come out right. Oh, how about that? That worked out pretty good. And that one's got a lot of rust on it for some reason. Now we can get down to the spark plug. Don't forget to go ahead and reinstall this. Now I'm going to put a little bit of lubricant on this O-ring just to make sure that it seals in there. And then we'll go ahead and put this back in. Grab our bolt and thread our bolt in. So here's what all the old spark plugs look like. And they're not in the best of condition. You can definitely see they're really black and they've got oil on them. So that's a good indication that we're burning some oil. So probably pretty good that we did this, and the electrodes wore down pretty good on a lot of them. So I just got back on a little test drive with the vehicle after doing the spark plugs in it, and I don't know if it fixed it completely 100%, but it is definitely not as noticeable as it was before. Before it would jump like 100, 200, sometimes even 300 RPM, and it wouldn't stay like constant. Like normally you have your car and it'll like cruise up and it'll go down, but this would like jump when you're going up and down. When you're going like trying to speed up, it would just jump up the RPM range. So that helped out a lot. I'm gonna drive it around for a little bit longer and see if that fixes my problem, or the problem that she's having. But for right now, it seems to be running a ton better, and those plugs were fouled pretty bad. There's a lot of oil in it, so that probably means that there's a PCV problem. The emissions likes to put that oil vapors back into the engine, so that makes it not the best on the engine, but it makes it better on the environment because you burn that oil. Win, lose, but what it's doing is it's causing those plugs to foul because it's got oil all over them. Who knows? We've got new ones in there. We're going to test drive it for a little bit and we'll see if that fixes it. Hopefully, fingers crossed, but first preliminary, it seems to be fixing it, so that's sweet. Okay, enjoy the rest of your day. Peace. Cool, well that's gonna do it for me today. I hope you guys, hope this was helpful. Hopefully you learned something. If you have a different process, let me know down in the comments. Leave a comment, leave a like if this was helpful, and enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. Take it easy. Peace.